Welcome to 2 Cents Worth. I am your host, Ryan DeFaber. Before we get started, please do me a favor. For those of you who enjoy the show, please go to iTunes, Spotify, all the major platforms. Like the podcast, leave a review. That helps us get out to more viewers and listeners. It's extremely helpful. Go on the YouTube, 2 Cents Worth podcast on the YouTube. You can listen to it there as well. And leave a comment, like it. All of that is extremely helpful for us here at 2 Cents Worth. Now, on to the show. Welcome to 2 Cents Worth. I am your host, Ryan DeFaber. Today, we are in fall. It's officially fall. Summer's over. We have entered the fall season. The weather is changing. Even driving around Charlotte right now, you can see that the leaves are changing. We have college football. We have pro football. The Ryder Cup for golf, the last big thing in the golf season. You have the NBA going to start up, NHL is going to start up, and then you'll have college basketball. We are in fall, right? It is cooler temperatures, a lot of sports. Baseball is going to go into the playoffs soon. My Yankees, absolutely disastrous season. Hopefully we can figure it out in the off season and rebound for 2024. Bringing the kids there next year, that'll be fun. We're going to do a trip up to New York, get them to see a Yankee game in Yankee Stadium. But this year just an absolute write-off. Hopefully we can figure it out. But it's fall, right? Driving around, like I said, you can see the leaves starting to change even here in Charlotte. It just kind of started changing temperature-wise. Now, again, here, fall for us, you're going to have warmer fall, right? Like this week it's 70s and 80s, but in the morning it's 60s. And to me, 60s, a little chilly, right? That's your first sign of fall. In the summer, the mornings are in the 80s, and you have the humidity. The humidity's kind of gone now, and now you have the cooler temperatures in the morning, more comfortable in the morning. But as you know, and if you've listened, by the way, if you're listening, give us a rating on your podcast platform. Leave us a comment. Share. Always helpful to grow the podcast. And obviously continuing to try and give you content week after week, month over month, year over year as we edge closer to the 100th episode of 2 Cents Worth. So, cooler temperatures, fall, but what that also means is busy, right? And I think I was looking at it and thinking about it as I put this podcast together. I'm like, man, fall is so busy. And then I'm like, well, so's summer, and so's spring, and so's winter. And that's why these years go by faster and faster, it feels like, as I get older. And we, in my particular situation, 2 kids, married, dog, social activities, kids stuff, you're busy year round, right? Like there's no breath. In the summer, we were busy. We're busy with kids' camps, sports, keeping them busy on the weekends. And now our weekends are basically occupied again, right? We have the oldest playing travel soccer, the youngest playing rec baseball. Our weekends, whether it's a full day on Saturday or we split with a Saturday and a Sunday, just depending on the oldest's games, the baseball is on Saturday, but then you have the weekday games, right? And then Nolan's got soccer practice twice a week. So we're busy, and when I look at it and I go, man, fall, fall's busy. It is busy, right? We're busy with everything that's going on. Kids are back in school, right? So again, that's another thing to add to the mix. Work as we head into Q4 is going to get busy as you end out the year, especially in the position that I'm in, where it's more of we're working on looking at your team and looking at year-end self-evaluations. We head into merit season and bonus season, and that's all on my shoulders for my team and working with my leadership, etc. So again, this part of the year is busy. Now, the rest of the year is very busy as well. And again, I guess I have to kind of put that into perspective. But when you look at it for what we talk about here, sports, life, family, fitness, all the things, fall's pretty busy. Like I mentioned, from a sports perspective, we're into week 5 already for college football. We're into week 4 for pro football. You have baseball winding down to where you're going to have the playoffs starting here soon in the next week or so. You have the Ryder Cup, all of these things. And like I mentioned, then you're going to have the NBA, and then you're going to have hockey and college basketball starting up soon as well. So you're going to have this full slate of sports at all times. So fall and as you edge into winter, extremely busy time for professional and collegiate sports if you're a sports fan. And then again, you look at then for kids, if you have kids and you keep them busy, whether it's sports or other activities, right? You have your fall baseball, soccer, flag football, regular football, if you play tackle football, all those things. So it is just such a busy time of year. And sometimes I like to just take a step back and look at it and just be like, appreciate the things that are in front of you and not get caught up in how time really does go by quickly, right? There's no morbidity here in saying this, but we have one life. We only get a certain amount of time on this spinning rock through the universe. It's good to sometimes take a step back and look at it and appreciate what you have in front of you and appreciate the day. Whatever it is that you have going on, appreciate the day. I mentioned it a few episodes ago about that mentality change, and I've really been trying to implement that a lot now, especially in the fall with how busy we have been, for me to just sit there and go, hey, we're busy. You're busy. Make sure that you appreciate what you have in front of you. I get to take my kids to the games. I get to coach my kids. I get to go and spend time with my spouse after the kids go to bed on a Friday night or a Saturday night around the fire pit while we have the TV on or music playing. I get to go hang out with my friends. I get to go play golf. I get to go to work. I get to do these things, and I have to be more mindful of when you're busy. Sometimes it feels like a burden. Sometimes it feels like you can't get your head above water because you're always being pulled in a different direction. Like for me and Lindsay, it's 3 nights a week, a weekday. So Monday through Friday, 3 nights of those, 3 nights of that is either consumed with soccer or baseball. So, then where's the time for us, right? She works full-time, I work full-time. She goes into the office. I, fortunately, right now work from home. So we're 8 to 10 hours apart from each other. Then they get home, the kids get home from school. She gets home from work, cooking dinner, and then one of us with one of the kids is out the door for a couple hours. And so when do you even get to spend that time together? So, again, it's kind of taking that step back and realizing, like, hey, when your life is busy, and fall is really busy for us and for most people, you got to just sit back and sometimes separate yourself from it and just go, hey, appreciate what you have. You only get one shot at this. Make the most of it. At the same time, make sure that you are also doing the things that you need to do, not only for yourself, but if you're married or have a significant other or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, you're making time for them. If it's your kids, you're making the time for them and not feeling like it's a burden that you have to take them to a practice or to a game or have to coach them or do any of those things. This is your one shot. So being busy is a great thing. It's not a bad thing. But also recognizing that when you are in a busy time, that you still make time for those around you, for yourself, all of that, right? Like you have to ensure that you're doing that for yourself and for your marriage, for your kids, for your family, your parents, right? Like I'm terrible at this. Absolutely terrible at this. Now, my parents and Lindsay's parents live here in Charlotte, so we get to see them we get to see them more often than other kids might of their parents. And sometimes I don't have a good mentality about that. Sometimes it's a burden. And I need to change that mentality for myself as well, to sit there and go, hey, I get to see my parents as much as I do. I get to see them at my kids' games. My kids get to grow up with my parents and my in-laws around them at their games, being able to spend time with them, sleepovers, go to their houses for dinner, they come to our houses, etc. I'm bad at that. And it's more so because I am one of 4 kids. I am the only one that lives here in Charlotte. So a lot of the burden in regard to my parents as they are getting older and my in-laws as they are getting older does fall on myself and my wife, right? My wife is one of 2. Her brother doesn't live here. She lives here, right? So again, for us, I sometimes feel that burden of, hey, we got to make sure that we're in charge of what's going on with our parents from a health perspective, from a social perspective, et cetera, to make sure that they're moving around, they're in their 70s, they're active, letting them know the time, the place, et cetera, where all the games are and everything like that. So changing that mentality is something I'm going to certainly be working on over this as we end the year and go into the new year and everything, and making sure that, again, everything I've said in the last 10 minutes is appreciate the one shot you have here and make the most of it. And so as we are in fall and we are busy, I do encourage you to make sure that you take that step back, appreciate what's around you. Don't get consumed by and overwhelmed by it. Lean on those around you if you need help, if you are in a busy state and overwhelmed, and appreciate it. Appreciate what you get to do, what you get to be a part of, who you have around you, etc. Right? So, as we are in fall, we are busy. I do appreciate the busyness. I think it is great that my kids are involved in all of these activities and sports. And like, for instance, they were doing some football stuff this week, right? So it's been fun to see them. They got to practice with the local high school team this week, and then we're going to get to be able to be a part of the game tonight and get to go to a high school game. I haven't been to a high school football game in years. Terrible at that as well, of going back and to my old school, my high school, which isn't that far away. I've just never really have the urge to do it, and maybe it is sometimes the fact that I don't appreciate that the high school is my high school and I'm an alum is only a 15-minute drive from the house, and get to go and do that. And the university where Lindsay and I went to is less than an hour drive away, and maybe go down to a game there. We've been to a baseball game, but I've only been to probably 3 or 4 baseball games since I graduated. Boy, I'm getting old now. 18 years ago, 2006. What is that? 17 years ago? So, doing a better job of those types of things too, and going and bringing my kids to those things and doing that stuff on a Friday night or a Saturday or a weekday. Probably not a weekday because we're busy. But, the other thing too is school. Kids are back in school. They're learning. Right now the youngest is learning how to read, right? He's in 1st grade. So for him, and he reminds me a lot of myself growing up, school was secondary. I liked going to school. I liked being with my friends. I liked recess. I liked gym. I like the fun things, right? School, and I was a good student, but like don't take that out of context that I was a terrible student, and school didn't mean much to me. I was a good student, but again, my parents had to push me more to get my homework done, had to push me more to appreciate school over my sister, who's 2 years older than I am, and school was more of her thing, right? Mine was more of the social aspect of it and the sports aspect of it and activities. And I see that a little bit with my youngest, right? Harrison is more, every time I ask him, what was your favorite part of the day? Now, I will say, we ask him that every day, and the first thing that he did say the other day was math. And I was like, okay, good. Like I liked math. I was very good at math. Usually got an A in math throughout school all the way through college. Math was just something I was good at, right? Even though it just did take me a while to figure out that I graduated 17 years ago. I'm getting old, okay, people? Don't mind me. I'm almost 40. Brain's starting to slow down. But, I see that in him now to where I'm like, every night he's got quote-unquote homework, and what that is really his teacher is, hey, get him to recognize these sight words. Get him to write these words down now. Read a book. Write the book down in his agenda. Starting to build that structure around getting to read and doing these things that, we're tasked with in life, of really building out a schedule and making sure you're getting these things done, because that's what you have to be accountable for. And so for him and me, it's, oh man, we got to read tonight before bed. No, it's, I'm getting to teach my kid and help my kid learn how to read, right? And I always tell him that when he gets a little upset about it. He's like, oh, we have to read. I'm like, hey, buddy, isn't it better when you are on your iPad or watching TV, or we're out somewhere and reading on a menu or anything like that, or reading anything, that you're soon going to be able to read those words and not always have to ask us for help? And it gives him more of that ownership. And he's like, yeah, no, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, like that's why we're doing it. I'm like, and I try and relate it back to sports where his interests are. I'm like, it's just like sports, bud. Like, you only play a game once or twice a week, but you're going to practice every single week for that game. This is just practice. This is why we're doing it here. Yes, you did it at school today, but you are learning. You're practicing your reading. You're practicing for when we go out, when you see something, and you're going to be able to then look at it, and it's not just a bunch of letters put together. So I think that's something as well. Like, now that we're back in the swing of school, it is, hey, making sure that you're there present as a parent in these busy times with everything going on with the sports and your life and your marriage and you as a father or a mother or whatever, right? It's like, hey, get to appreciate the things that you have, and get to appreciate that you're going to help this next generation, your generation, you're the generation of children that you've created, right? So for me, it's now, okay, they're back in school. I'm now getting to teach my youngest Harrison now how to read, along with his teacher and those around him. Lindsay doing the same thing. Nolan, on the other hand, as he works his way now into middle school, as he's going into fifth grade, as he's in fifth grade and going into sixth grade, it is more so around, hey, responsibility, right? His teacher's big on the parent not always doing everything for the child. Hey, it's not you as a parent's responsibility to know that I expect the child to read 30 minutes every night. I expect the child to get this done and to have this piece signed in your agenda, right? So it's more of, now we're in that stage with him to where we have to kind of separate ourselves a little bit, take that step back and say, okay, we're not going to set you up for failure, but if it requires you to fail at something for you to learn, then we might need to do that, right? If it's, you're not going to get rewarded in school because you didn't get your agenda signed, well, hey man, that's on you. That's not mom and dad's responsibility now to constantly hound you and try and find you to do those things. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Had a phone call, had to answer that. So But back to what I was saying about, Nolan, it's more of, hey, we have to be able to potentially let him fail in order to succeed. Now, we're not going to constantly set him up for failure, but it is teaching him those responsibilities, right? And I do appreciate that about the school that we're a part of and the teachers that are there is the real building blocks for these children in life is understanding that mom and dad and society and everyone around you isn't going to mow everything down in front of you to make sure that you live a successful life. Life is hard. I just talked about it for the last 20 minutes about busyness and separating yourself from some of the burdens of what you think you're in and looking at the bigger picture and appreciating what you have around you and understanding you only have one shot at this. But life can be very hard. And so I think it's great that they are teaching that to the kids, right? And helping them understand, like, hey, you have to be accountable for the things that you're asked to do. That's life. That's job. That's family. That's husband. That's wife. That's parent. That's grandparent. That's friend. That's all of those things. So, I think that's great too, with school. Now, with school, here's the other thing too. And I'm a believer in this, and with what we've gone through over the last couple of years, some people listening to this might be like, oh my God, what the fuck's wrong with you? Don't care. Fuck off if you have a problem with it. Kids getting sick. Love it. I think it's fantastic. You want to know why? It builds their immune system. You ever heard of herd immunity? It's a real thing. You might not have over the last couple of years because of what our mainstream media and our lovely government try and tell you, but it's a real thing. And when your kids go back to school, they get sick. And what do they bring? They bring home the sickness. And what you get to do as a parent is potentially build your immunity as well, right? So the kids they come home the last couple of weeks with some head colds. It's all part of it. It's part of fall. It's part of winter. It's part of going back to school. I'm for it. It means that they're back in the mix of it. They're building their immunity. They're being kids. They're around other kids. Kids are fucking disgusting. They're petri dishes. But guess what? We were once kids as well, and we went through the same thing. And look at us now, right? It is part of life as well, is these common colds and these sicknesses. Just build your immunity. Take care of yourself. Rest, all those things. Now, that's one thing that, as a child, that's the hardest thing to do, right? The two kids both got sick. The hardest thing was for me to get them to do? Just sit still. Sit still, rest, go take a nap. Oh my God, naps are awful. I'm like, let me tell you something. When you get to mom and dad's age, naps are awesome. I love a good afternoon nap on a weekday. Or it's a weekday, Jesus. On a weekend. A weekday nap would sound pretty nice too, but that's not on the cards. Unless you're my buddy Pete. I'm just kidding, Pete, if you're listening. But it's hard to get the kids to rest and to stop and slow down, which again it's okay. Like, I love their energy. Like, we all have watches that track our steps, right? They crush me every day. I get up at 4:00 in the morning. I go to the gym, but then it's me sitting behind my desk for 8 hours. These kids are constantly moving. They'll come home and they'll be like, I have 17,000 steps. And I'm like, I'm at 7,000 steps. And I've been up 3 hours longer than you have, but I also sat for 3 hours, 7 hours now out of my day. But I think that's great. Like, getting the kid to stop is obviously difficult, but getting them getting sick isn't such a bad thing. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's not a horrible thing that they get sick. Again, I think for me it is it's a good thing. They are building their immunity. Their bodies are being able to build on those things and then fight it off the next time. So, all of this said, your life is busy. My life is busy. Being a husband, being a father, being a son, being a friend, being a coworker, being a manager, being a leader. Working out, trying to be healthy, having a good balance in life. Sometimes take a step back. Look at what you have in front of you. Appreciate what's in front of you. Not everything is a burden. I need to do a better job at that, but sometimes when I look at these things and I plan out these podcasts and I think about these things, some of this kind of just comes out naturally as I start talking. The plan of this podcast was just mostly to talk about fall and the swing of things and the weather changing and being busy with the sports and school and everything else. And as I continued to talk, I realized, yes, it is about that, but your life is busy throughout every season, not just fall or spring and summer it slows down. No, life is busy throughout the year. But it's important for you and for myself, again, going back a couple episodes, talking about that mentality change. Have a different mentality and you're going to live a healthier and happier life. I'm really trying to do that. I've certainly struggled over the last couple of years of being a good person for myself mentally. Everything that gets put in front of you is false. I want you to understand that. What you see on social media, what you see on the mainstream media, what the government tells you, all of these things, it's not real. It's not true. It's to spread fear. It's to spread this false sense of, oh, well, everyone's happy on social media. Bullshit, they are. They go through the same life that you go through. Yeah, they might have different opportunities than you have, but take a step back and look at what you have around you. And I've had to really do that over the last couple years as I've really struggled mentally of being the best version of myself and being happy with what I have around me. And I'm really working on that. And I'm finding it to be better. I'm trying to be a better friend. I've lost some friends probably because of my own interpretation of things. Lindsay and I were talking a couple of days ago about friendship and how our friend circle have gotten smaller over the years. And is it us? Is it them? And I didn't have an answer for that. I try my best to reach out to everybody, but I also get to a point to where the reciprocation isn't given back. And if there's not reciprocation given back, then I don't know if I want to be a friend to that person. But then is it me? Is it me? Is it they don't want to be friends with me? Is there something that I've done over the last couple of years that really has turned them off to being my friend? Or is it just that life is just, as I've talked about right here, so busy that we've just gone separate ways and our interests are different? It could be. But I've lost some friends over the last couple of years that I wish I didn't. I truly didn't wish I lost them. They were some of my good friends. Some of them I've known for more than half my life. And I say lost more so for the fact that they don't reach out to me. And again, this might be a selfish way of thinking, but I can only reach out to somebody so many times and not have them reach out to me, to see how I'm doing, to see if they want to hang out, etc. So take a step back, appreciate what you do have around you. Have that mentality change. I'm working on it myself. But, we're in a busy part of the year from a sports perspective, from a life perspective, family perspective, health perspective. We don't have the longer days, right? I talked about this the last couple episodes about seasonal depression. I'm going to work really hard on that this year. I'm going to work as hard as I can to not have seasonal depression through late fall, winter, where the days are shorter. It's not as warm. Still need to take care of myself from a health perspective, from eating perspective, from a mental perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from a marriage, from a father, from a friendship perspective. Don't let the seasonal depression get you down. I'm going to work on it, making sure it doesn't get me down as the days get shorter, as the weather gets colder. But I'm going to be really working on myself. And with everything being busy as it is, as is life, I'm going to appreciate things more than think of them as burdens. And I implore you to do the same thing. I appreciate you guys listening today. As always, as I've mentioned before, and I mentioned before the podcast starts, giving this likes, sharing it with anybody, letting people know. I'm just a regular 39-year-old guy trying to figure out life, trying to figure out my health, trying to figure out my marriage, trying to figure out how to be a parent, how to be a better friend, how to be a better son, a better brother. Anything helps to spread the word. Somebody might need to listen to this that is close to you, is a coworker of yours, might need to hear this. So if you can, like it, comment, share it. I appreciate all of the support. As always, this is 2 cents worth. I am your host, Ryan DeFaber. Have a great day.